Please welcome Toastmaster Miles with his speech entitled, A Millionaire or Not?
Thank you very much. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Do you want to become incredibly rich?
Yeah.
Yes, of course you do. Do you want buckets and buckets of money? And this money should be without borrowing on grandfather's money or hitting the bank like Bonnie and Clyde, but something you have to own yourself, something which is original, and that's the way that you can make money. Now, I give you a little history. I was the designer of the first theme park in Britain. It had an impossible name. Its name was Grick, which means Welsh in hedge in English, and it was a folly. And the owner asked me, what are you going to do with it? What entertainment are you going to put into it? And I said, I'm going to put in knights on horseback. And the board said, don't be stupid. Knights died out 4 centuries ago. Well, I said, I'll create them. And I did. And in May of 1972, realizing that's now 50-something odd years ago, the Principality opened to the general public and medieval entertainment was born. And this was basically jousting, knights bashing each other with swords and so on. But the problem was, even though I created it, I did not own it. And owning is the key. So as much as the visitors thronged to look at guys wrestling and fighting and falling off horses, I realized that nostalgic entertainment and ownership of nostalgic entertainment was the key. And there was already a precedent in England with the reenactment of the civil wars. And it took a year to find my partners, to organize design, costumes, equipment, buy horses. But by January of 1974, we started the Company of Knights, professional stuntmen. Now, stuntmen are basically out of work all the time. They occasionally appear in the odd film, but most of the time these guys are out of work. So they were very happy to be called Sir Lancelot, also Gawain, and so they joined me with great enthusiasm. And the Fighting Knights was an easy sell. All I needed was photography and a script, and I could go around Europe and sell a 2-hour show. And by the middle of 1974, it had grown to an absolutely massive scale. It was a Barnum and Bailey. I had 70 employees. I had Pantechnicon trucks carrying horses here, there, and everywhere, and enormous numbers of people attending, 16,000 people in one show alone, paying about $10 a head. You do the math. It was basically 8 million a week. And my colleague and I lay on our beds counting cash, purely cash. And we said, we're rich, we're absolutely rich, overnight. Just think about it. Over the course of 5 or 6 months, there were a few records, everybody benefited, the town benefited from increased tourism, restaurants, and so on. And so on paper, I became a millionaire. In fact, I made a lot more money than being a millionaire. But what about the overhead, you might ask? What about the overhead? The trucks that carry the horses, the cost of advanced publicity, insurance to cover the injuries, the lodging costs. How could you control the idea? And the real reality was that some stuntmen suddenly decided they weren't going to go on. And they basically held us to ransom. The equipment broke down and it could not be repaired. We had one man who took a lance straight through the helmet. Another man lost a finger in a sword fight. It became a nightmare to transport horses, to get them special feed, to exercise them when they were not required for show purposes. And the money began to flow out as rapidly as it had flown in. We were victim of the weather. We had problem after problem. I was called by the Belgian police to get 10 nights out of prison for beating up Belgian sailors who called them silly Nancy boys. A boa constrictor basically died, and I had to bury it. And on top of all that, the taxman hovered. The taxman. So, my advice to you, and there are some photographs of this show that should be photographing around here, is that if you want to become an instant millionaire, and I dare say a lot more on paper, you have to quickly move it into solid cash. I sold my shares. I got out of the company of Knights. It was not frivolity. I was on the way to becoming personally bankrupt. So you may have the idea for the market, you may look at the long picture, not the short gain, and the market is constantly changing, and what works well for you one year probably won't the next. Let's just toast on.